Hey everyone, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and he is,
Chris,
and Chris, he is. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing wonderful. Sundays are my favorite day of the week.
They are my maybe third or fourth favorite day of the week. If I had to rank them,
Friday.
Friday being like
Yeah.
number two, Saturday number one. Sunday it's down there on the list because I have to go back to work tomorrow.
I was gonna
So
say, Mr. No Job over here. That's why
yeah, yeah,
Sundays.
freeloader.
I get my family home on Sundays, although I'm tied up doing stuff like this, to be fair. But no, just
You're freeloading off of your wife.
right. Yeah, exactly. For those listening at home, I am a stay-at-home dad, which usually when I say that, oh, that's a tough job, and it is, but at the same time, my kids are
He does have a
good
job,
kids.
and
Yeah,
that's being dad.
there you go.
All right, so we're here to talk about some free agents today. We're going to do quarterbacks and running backs. Next week we will do wide receivers and tight ends. We decided to split it for I don't remember why. Whatever. This is what we're
Time,
doing.
because reasons.
Time. Yes.
No,
Oh,
it's a
and
good.
because I do a show with Chatty Cathy here, so
Exactly. That's actually a great opportunity to mention, do a little housekeeping. If you guys have any comments, criticism, I know Josh already said something about, leave criticism, shoot an email, leave a comment, whatever. Uh, Format, like length, uh, like actual format, the order we go in the show, just let us know. But yeah, that was
Oh
it.
yeah. We're always down for some criticism.
Hmm.
There's only one way you can insult me, and you're never gonna find out what it is. So hey, otherwise I can take just about anything you throw at me.
That's not an open
Anyways,
invitation to do so, though. But
I'm
anyway,
down for a challenge.
yeah, no, we before we hit the record button, we were talking a lot about future plans and time format of the show. So I think now is a great time to hammer that down. And if anybody has any input, let us know.
Yes, we were talking about world domination and what it takes to actually make accomplish that.
Yes,
And we're not talking about it, virtually. We're talking about like I'm gonna rule the world. So,
like
anyways,
like Binky
let's.
and the Brain stuff.
Oh yeah,
Binky,
I
Binky,
I don't.
Binky with a B. Yeah, I
You're
did it right.
you're totally pinky, by the way.
Yeah, I
And
am.
it's mainly because you're like skinnier and taller than I am. Not that I'm
That's
like
kind of calling
uber
me dumb,
short and
though. That's
squat.
not fair. Huh?
Yeah, that's. But I mean, Brain's kind of like, even though he's really smart, he's also kind of dumb and can't realize his own faults anyway. So
That's why they're the polar opposite characters that they are.
yeah. Anyways, let's move on to our free agents here. Let's start with
Yes.
quarterbacks here. And if anyone's wondering why we're going in this particular order, I just went down the list of PFF's free agent ranks. So whatever. Dak is number one on our list here. Chris's favorite guy in the world, Dak Prescott. Is that a four? Is since Jason Witten is officially retired, are you now on the
Oh,
Dak train?
it's been a while coming. It's been like a good year and a half since, probably
What?
even more than that, because Witten's had been on the downside of his career for some time. Not that I instantly was like, I don't like you. It's just I wanted a more up and coming favorite player, I guess you could say, and for whatever reason, a
Not
favorite player
Zeke?
means anything. But no, no,
Not Zeke?
it's
No.
most important position on the field and the best sport in the world. What's not to love about a quarterback? So, and furthermore, Dak
He's no goalie.
seems like a good kid. I know we've got some stuff going on. We'll probably touch on that a little bit later in terms of NFL quarterbacks, but he seems like the type of person that I wouldn't mind one of my daughters rooting for. Although he won't be playing then. But anyway,
You mean your daughters that are gonna grow up and be Eagles fans?
no, probably Bears fans. Actually, probably none of the above if things carry on the current trajectory.
Probably not.
No.
All right, okay. So Dak is the first guy we're talking about here. He got a 4-year contract worth $160 million, 126 of it guaranteed. That's a payday right there.
He set some
Um,
records for those. Yeah,
he was
well,
going to, and the Cowboys were so dumb to put this off until this
mhm.
season. If
Oh
they'd have
yeah,
done it last year, I mean, this number could have been smaller.
should have been done.
It's weird that it was only a 4-year deal, but that's cool. Whatever.
It's funny. People last year were like 35, no way. 28, or whatever. 32, 37 million. Yeah, this is what happens. And we all knew he was going to be the highest paid player in the league when it happens. Although record wise, I think, and I should have had this written down, but Mahomes is obviously the one that comes to mind in terms of highest paid quarterback, but he has a 10-year deal. So his
Yeah.
yearly average is a little lower. Furthermore, Dak set a record for most guaranteed money in the first 4 years. He gets it all. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, so let's see if Dak can make good on this. Let's go win a Super Bowl talk. And so I have a couple of talking points here. So we know that Dak broke his ankle in week 5. He broke his ankle, right?
Yes.
Okay. So he broke his ankle in week 5. And if you include that game, even if you include that partial game into his fantasy points for this season, he would have and then you take all that and projected that he played all 16 games, he just scored 445.25 points. You know where that would have ranked him as far as point totals for all the other fantasy players in the season?
Number one with a bullet.
Number 1. So, I mean,
But is Dak
and
better
you
than
know,
Carson Wentz? It's so hilarious. But this isn't a
and
Dak
you know, honestly,
show.
like the part of this is because of Dallas's defense was not very
Being
good last year, and
historically
so far
bad.
they haven't really done a whole lot to fix it either.
Nope.
So my only concern with Dak is the Cowboys offensive line. Is it going to come back healthy? Are they going to retool a little bit and try and fix some minor flaws in it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my main concern there. Other than that, man, Dak top 5 quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
going off the board next year.
Yeah, yeah, and then the fantasy assets that he touches, so to speak, the Dallas offensive weapons.
Mhm.
This is just this is a
Fire him
bonus.
up.
Exactly, this is a bonus for them. We saw what they could do last year. We saw them without Dak, obviously. So that's all the more reason to be optimistic. Remember, Dak is 100% healthy up till that point. So knock on wood. It's the world's most violent game, but at the well, maybe not the world's the most violent game out there. So
Most
there's
violent team
that
sport,
baked in,
for
but
sure.
he's a tough dude. This offense is built around him. This coach
Maybe
was
not.
brought on board to help. Uh, so yeah, I think the world of him as a player and as a fantasy asset, like you said, this wheels up, man. You want a piece of this Dallas offense, but you'll have to pay a bit of a premium. There is one caveat, and we'll get to him more in the off season, but I'm a little worried about where Zeke is in terms of is he at the cliff, the point in
Well,
his career.
that's fine. We're not talking about Zeke right now. So
Yeah,
let's move on.
I'm
Sorry,
just
I
saying.
don't mean to cut you
No,
short,
it's
but
okay.
let's
I'm just
just
saying he's the only piece that I would have any misgivings about.
all right. Let's move on to our next quarterback here, and that is Ryan Fitzpatrick, or some of you might know him as Fitzmagic.
Yes.
He got signed by the Washington football team, or as we like to call them in these parts, the Tato Skins. Um, I love this signing, man.
Me too.
I think this is a really, really smart signing for the Washington football team.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I don't know if I could have really picked a better spot for Ryan Fitzpatrick to land, to be quite honest. He's going behind a pretty good offensive line. I think PFF ranked him number 6 or 7 last year as far as one of the 6th or 7th best offensive line. This is gonna help. It has to help Terry McLaurin from his numbers last year, which really weren't all that bad with
Mm-hmm.
the quarterback carousel that was there. But you know, what do you think about this, man?
We opened the show with Dak because of money and shock wow factor, but this is the one I'm most excited about, just because Dak was already there, kind of. I know he injury and all that, but Fitzpatrick in Washington, I'm right there with you. Gibson, McLaren, uh, even potentially the second running back could be a pass catching PPR type of deal, and don't forget Curtis
Uh,
Samuel signed also.
they just signed Curtis Samuel, which we'll talk about more next week. Like I
Good
had
point.
said at the top of the show, we're only doing quarterback, running back here, but yeah, Curtis Samuel coming in too. That I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick was one of the reasons why, or he yeah, I mean, Winston helped too, but like in
Mm,
2019, why Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were both top to 15 receivers. In 2019, he made Devontae Parker a fantasy relevant wide receiver
mhm,
too. I think he
mhm.
was a top 15 wide receiver that year, top 12 maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yep.
But so I mean,
He's
He's
he's bringing
bringing
fantasy
confident
value.
quarterback
Yeah,
play, and Terry McLaurin's a great wide receiver. He's not just a speed guy. At least I don't think he
I
is.
want to hammer down on it.
Um,
Well, we'll talk more about receivers next week, but do you have a kind of off the top of your head where he might be in your rankings with
who?
this move? McLaren. I think he's kind of the
Uh,
biggest
top
one.
20 for sure.
I'm thinking top 12. I think he's a
I
wide
don't know about
receiver
that.
one now. I think he is. But early
Mm,
speculation, and we've got a wide receiver show coming up, but or free agent wide receiver show.
remind me
Uh,
this next week, and
well, go
I'll
ahead.
maybe kind of do a quick little
Spiel on it.
rankings and see.
See where you've got him.
No, just behind the scenes. Anyways,
Gotcha.
it's only a 1 year deal, but that's fine. The football team is probably going to end up drafting a quarterback in the draft. Obviously, they haven't really done anything else to show that they're like looking in like as far as free agency or anything like that. They haven't traded for another quarterback. They do have Kyle Allen sitting there on the team still, I believe, which
A
Ron Rivera brought
coach's
in when he
favorite.
was
Yeah.
still with the Panthers, but I don't think this is going to be much of a competition. I think it's Fitzpatrick starting day one,
Mhm.
maybe somewhere throughout the season. The whatever rookie they draft might come in to play just to see if he's any
Depending on
good.
their win loss record, and if, like you said,
Exactly.
if it's a young guy, yes. If it's another vet, no. There's no
Here's the
point.
and here's the thing too that I like to do. Like I like to wait super long on quarterbacks. Like I'll be one of the last people, if not the last person
Oh
in a
yeah.
draft to draft a quarterback in a one quarterback league, of course.
Standard one quarterback league,
Um,
of course. Yeah.
and so how I usually pick that quarterback is based on who they're going up against week one. So if the football team here is like say in week one they're going up against Dallas,
I was just gonna
well, I'm
say.
gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna take Ryan Fitzpatrick, as my week one quarterback, with Terry McLaurin and everything. I think that's a good strategy right there.
Definitely. I wanted to address two other things. Fitzpatrick himself, like we're talking about now, and then the tight end before we're
Mhm,
done. But Fitzpatrick in a single
mhm.
quarterback league, yeah, he's a he he
He's
could
gonna be
potentially
a
go
favorite. He's
undrafted
gonna be a
in kind of
favorite.
smaller leagues, like 10-team leagues. But I like where your head's at in terms of waiting
Mm.
forever and getting a ton of value out of this guy. I do think he's more of a super flex guy. I think he's a must draft in super flex.
Oh
Um,
well, every quarterback isn't a super flex, but
well, but some are more of
uh,
your QB3 type of guys. And then, of course, you
yeah,
work out the
true.
math as far as how many people you have in the league. But so I would consider Fitzpatrick a QB2 in Superflex and a super late round value, like you just said in redraft. And then there's Logan
Mhm.
Thomas.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where
I
are you at on
mean,
him?
I don't love this for Logan Thomas. Fitzpatrick has not. Well, he doesn't avoid
Hmm.
the tight throwing to the
Hmm.
tight end because no quarterback just is like, oh, the tight end's open. I'm still not throwing to him. No one does that, but he doesn't hyper focus on the tight end like some quarterbacks do. He
Right.
doesn't like to utilize the tight end like some quarterbacks do, like say a Tom Brady or like a Peyton Manning back in the day. Um, I don't know. I don't love it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he was a great value last year. Kind of a diamond in the rough, I guess, if you want. Maybe not a
Hmm.
diamond, but it was hard to find tight end play. We all know that. I'm definitely keeping my eye on him. I also have misgivings about the quarterbacks selection and having one really good receiver and then Curtis Samuel. Like I feel like he's
Hmm.
more the quarterback that focuses on two wideouts.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
and yeah,
that's totally his
obviously
play
he's
style.
he's throwing to the backs in the slot and the tight end also, but vast majority seems to go to these two
Yeah.
weapons. So we'll see. Um, Maybe that comes down to how I feel about Samuel, or how he feels about Samuel, should I say? But I sure would like to
Okay.
see a value there, and I love this offense.
Let's move on to our next quarterback here. It is Jameis Winston. He gets a 1 year deal to stay in New Orleans for 5.5 million, fully guaranteed. It sounds like a lot of money to you and me, Chris, but to in an NFL pay structure and everything, this is backup quarterback money.
Yes, sir.
I
Correct.
think that they're going to hold. I don't know if it's going to be Taysom Hill or even if the Saints are going to like go out and draft a rookie in the first round this coming draft. But I think it's going to be open quarterback competition. I know you're a Taysom Hill guy. I'm kind of not.
I'm just
I'm
following
not
the
saying.
money, really. I
Well,
guess I
right.
like him a little better. I'm interested to see what he
I
can
just
do,
think that Jameis Winston, if you could kind of get rid of that gunslinger mentality that he has,
or at least tone it down.
well, and get him to focus a little bit more and see the field a little bit better instead of just throwing the ball up. And remember back in the day, I mean, you're from Texas. Did y'all ever play 500 where you just kind of threw the ball up and like yelled out a name, like a number, and you had to like build up points to get to 500, and if you did, you won.
I don't know
Did you
if
ever
we
play
had
that?
this quite that scoring system, and we definitely had a different name.
Huh.
But
But
yeah,
that's okay. So
it's the same
that's what
basic
Jameis
principle.
Winston's
Yeah,
doing.
it's a blast. It's yeah.
He's just throwing the ball up and just
I believe the term
yelling things
Josh
out.
is YOLO.
I hate
It's
you know me. I am a crotchety 36-year-old. All right,
Josh
I
is a
might as well be
Josh
72.
Josh is a boomer, and particularly when it comes to abbreviations and slang.
I just
Ironically, I am not, I guess. Although
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
so
like I
weird,
am
dude. You
sometimes.
text me all these
I
abbreviations,
know.
and I'm
I
like,
spend a
I
lot of
don't
time
know.
around kids. What can I say?
I have to like show your text message to someone at work and be like, what the heck does that mean? And they're like, this, and I'm like, oh, why didn't he just say that? They're like, because
I
he's
got
not
the
old and
time.
crotchety like
Ain't
you.
nobody got time for that.
But
Ain't
see,
nobody
you
got time
saved
for
all the
that.
time by sending me these abbreviations, but then you had to explain it to me. So you might as well just
Oh,
set it
and then
out,
if I'm
spell it
talking
out.
fantasy or computers or really kind of anything, I'm a paragraph text message guy. And then I'll throw in
Yeah,
like
you like to send me books via
an
text
abbreviation.
message.
Yeah. I'm wordy,
Anyways,
guys.
let's move on. Let's move on to our next guy. If or I'm sorry, Jameis
Oh no.
Winston. He's probably just going to be a backup. Did
We
you have
gotta talk
anything
about
else to
Taysom.
say about Winston?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit with the money. I'm my logic is I'm following the money. And you'll hear that come up a couple times in the rest of this show and next week. So that's why I'm defaulting to Taysom. This is wide open. I agree with you. This is wide open. I think the Saints think they can really not rebuild on the fly. They're just not going to rebuild. They're just going to, okay, here's the quarterbacks we have on the roster. We've been planning this for a couple of years. He thinks he can win with Taysom, and there's something very intriguing about what Winston can do in terms of numbers and touchdowns. But I lean Taysom. Fantasy take on that is, we still haven't changed the scoring for quarterbacks. So he's gonna
You haven't.
he could be a top 10 quarterback. 10, top 12. I might say 12. He could be QB1 on this offense. He'll be running around. I think he's a good enough thrower. I mean, this is a good question. Let's pose this to you because I know you're more of a negative on Lamar or Taysom Hill, and take that from a real football or a fantasy or both perspective.
Neither.
That's fair. I'll allow it.
Um. Yeah,
So,
neither.
so I have
Anyways,
this last note on him I have is I think for standard quarterback leagues, this is a stay away situation. We don't know what's going to happen. It's an absolute stay away.
for now.
In a super flex
Well,
league,
okay. So
mhm,
like, let's take the quarterback out of the situation or the conversation for the moment, and let's just focus on like Michael Thomas. How do you think that
right, that affects
Taysom
him.
Hill slash Jameis Winston or even whatever rookie. Let's just say Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston for right now. How do you
Yep.
think that affects Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara?
I like what I saw from Taysom to Thomas at the end of last year. There was a ray of hope. So I'll stick to that
Okay.
for a minute. But obviously, Winston can chuck the ball.
Yeah.
Volume comes to mind when I think of Winston. He's going to throw the ball a lot. There's going to be a lot of touchdowns. But remember, the Saints are a running team.
It's true.
So whatever you think, whatever I or others may think about Winston's volume and his propensity to sling it and rack up those attempts and those TDs and whatnot, I think he's going to be hampered from a fantasy perspective because it's New Orleans. And we've seen Breeze not be a world beater in fantasy the past 2 years or so.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, especially you put a premium on it and you start talking Superflex. Yeah, I think in Superflex, I have no problem having one of them as my third QB and taking a chance because
Yeah,
that probably means I got a really good 1 and 2 in a Superflex. But otherwise,
at least a
third,
really good
third
one.
QB or stay away in
Yeah,
Superflex.
okay. Let's move on to our next quarterback here. It is Cam Newton. I think there was a lot of smoke and mirrors that came out with his contract. Because when I was looking at it, I was like,
For sure.
well, that doesn't seem right. I thought it was supposed to be like 14 million. It could hit 14 million. I mean, a lot of things have to fall into place for that to happen. More or less
Health probably.
more or less a playoff run slash Super Bowl, and he had to start all 16 games.
Yeah, I was just going to
Otherwise,
say. Mhm.
the meat of this contract is 5.1 million. with 3.5 guaranteed.
Oh, only three and a
Um,
half of the base is guaranteed. Dang, that's kind
yeah.
of insulting. But
I mean, this is backup money again. Like
but
Winston, this is backup money for the
health
most part.
assumed it becomes Fitzpatrick money or Tyrod money.
Yeah. I mean,
Double digits, 10, 12, 14.
no, he
Max
has
is
to hit the
14?
playoff. They have to make the playoffs for a hit to hit double digits.
Oh, well, see, I don't think
Yeah.
they're winning the division, so there's that.
I don't know. Like look, okay, so this is Cam Newton's stats from last year. I just wanted to mention this real quick and we'll move on. 592 rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns. That's great. I like that. Uh 2,657 passing yards.
Mm,
Could be a lot higher. 8 passing touchdowns to 10 interceptions.
the volume's not there. It's just not there. And they
Like
haven't done anything to show us that there will be passing,
300,
any reasonable amount of passing volume
okay,
there.
and 368 attempts in 15 games.
Mm.
That
It's
is super low in the modern NFL.
dude,
That is
it's like the
super,
NFL
super
in the
low.
60s. It's
He
crazy
well that
low.
and I mean he also got benched like 3 times too.
Oh, for sure.
I
Got to
don't
mention that.
understand why Cam Newton actually came back to the Patriots. I don't know
I
why they
think
brought him back.
most. Go ahead.
I just I mean for this price, sure. Like they're gonna. I would be supremely surprised if they don't use their first round pick on a quarterback.
For sure.
I
Um,
I just it's
and
one of those.
there's
They are one team that really needs one.
And I think
And
they're also the type of franchise that would prefer Cam to go and start one more year if they do get said quarterback in their draft. First round. Has to be first round.
I think their free agent moves actually kind of
Dictate
focus
that.
on that. I mean, they got Janu, what's his last name? Smith, right? Janu Smith.
Yes,
They
sir.
got Hunter Henry. I mean, this really works well for Jameis, considering that he had
Cam.
like his average yards per attempt was like something like 7.2.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's perfect. And
I'm glad.
they got Nelson Aguilar too, not a speed guy. They're not looking for Cam to be
Possession.
tucking it down the field.
Exactly.
I think they're gonna be running some sort of 12 personnel like West Coast sort of style offense,
I couldn't have said
just
it by
real quick
myself.
passes.
I'm so glad you mentioned Janu because he is among the best blockers. I know people keep saying he is the move tight end, and he is because he's more athletic than Hunter. Hunter Henry will be your
Yep.
inline, kind of your run of the mill tight end, and he does both pretty well, blocking and catching. Whereas Janu is the move guy, a little bit smaller in terms of height, but built like a Greek god. But he's also he's a really good blocker, and he's a really good blocker because of his physical prowess. So I agree with you. I think we see an option, for lack of a better term, and I think we're seeing a little bit of Bill Belichick's pride, trying to squeeze some more wins and show that he can do it in different ways, which he has done in the past. But there was
Sure.
obviously a common denominator in the past, and that's the GOAT. And I think we're seeing that Brady had a lot more to do with this dynasty than the coach did. But the jury's still out. So
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
here
see.
this year to see New England losing all the games, Cam getting benched, this thing blowing up in their face. Even if it doesn't blow in their face, I still don't think they have the firepower to win the division. Fantasy terms, you said all the key points. I just think
Yeah.
maybe
Let's move on.
yeah.
Let's move on to our last quarterback here. The last quarterback I want to talk about at least, and this is going to be real quick. Andy Dalton signed with the Bears, 10.5 million, 7 of it guaranteed. This is just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks for the Bears. They are just hapless when it comes to finding a quarterback. I'm guessing they moved on from Mitch Trubisky. He went over to Buffalo, which side note, great move for Buffalo. Trubisky is a real poor man's Josh Allen. It's a great guy to back up Josh Allen. But Andy Dalton here, he'll probably be the starter at least in week 1. Um, I don't know, man. I mean, like, yeah, he turned out some. He made AJ Green have some 1,000 yard seasons back in Cincinnati. He looked semi competent in
Mm-hmm.
Dallas last year. He's going to a worse offensive line, arguably a worse offensive line.
Sure.
Um, I don't know, man. It's just another backup quarterback that's going to be the very starting quarterback to me. I just I
Yeah.
don't really want to say anything else. I just wanted to highlight that he's going to probably be the Bears' new starting
Didn't they
quarterback.
get a new coach a year ago? Is Nagy still there?
No.
He's still there.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's a little bit of the coach and front office holding on for dear life. veteran.
Nagy should have never went there and came out and said that Mitch Trubisky was his quarterback. He should have went in. That's how he got the job, but he should have went there
Right.
and
That's a
said
good point. Yeah.
this guy is not my guy. Don't hire me if you want to stick with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Him and Ryan Pace married themselves to Mitch Trubisky, and it didn't work out. And they just need to they need to find a new home. The Bears need to find a new GM / head coach, maybe a new GM to start with, I guess.
Yeah,
I
because I
don't know,
haven't seen
man.
great moves in the front office. Yeah, just
You,
fantasy
did you have any
terms.
other? Did you have any other quarterbacks you wanted to talk about?
Tyrod.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I think we got to touch on Tyrod Taylor here because of what's going on with Deshaun Watson. We're not going to dwell on it too long.
Yeah,
There's allegations out there. For the most part, we'll leave it at that. The
a growing
Texans have
number of
also,
them too.
yeah, exactly, a whole lot. Texans have also signed Ryan Finley. That's important to mention. Ryan Finley is it's no
Traded for him.
slouch. Oh, I'm sorry, traded. Thank you. He's no slouch. In fact, he's one of the, I don't think premium would be too strong a word, but he's a sought after backup.
Mhm.
Always a 2 or 3, but he's had to step into action and has performed admirably. So that's a important
Um,
signing in terms of Watson's
um,
availability. These signings are anyway. Yeah, it is a worthless note. Yeah, I mean that's basically all I've got on him. Fantasy terms, if Tyrod's the guy, because we have to speculate this at this point. Um, there's some running there.
If Tyrod's the guy, I don't want anything to do with this
Yeah,
team
I mean,
and no players.
I love Keenan Allen, so this is bad news. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They've blown up the offense there in Houston, so it's I don't know if there was anything to love beforehand aside from Watson himself. Now that that's in question and you put in Tyrod, fantasy stay away, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, they're running backs that I mean, I guess we can do a quick segue and go out of order to them picking up Philip Lindsay. I kind of
Right.
like it. Like
Mhm.
Philip Lindsay, he's going to get some time. He's going to get a timeshare with Mark Ingram there. But if you have Tyrod Taylor being that quarterback, and even frankly, if Deshaun Watson was the quarterback, having Brandon Cooks there as your only real threat, it's not enough to really entice me,
It's not. They're not.
especially behind a subpar offensive line. I
No.
just I don't really don't want to have anything to do with the Texans this coming year
E-
unless they do
Exactly.
something to change my mind, but so far they haven't.
And I find if you're somebody who subscribes to the fact to the idea that it trickles from the top down, I find better fantasy assets when I look at good organizations. I'm not talking
Exactly.
literally wins and losses every single season. Yes, that too, but
That
the
helps,
idea
but
of compete. But some teams have to rebuild too. But the idea of competing every year and seeing these decisions made in the front office that's heading in the right direction. These personnel decisions bear out, and these draft picks are good, etc. These free agent signings are good. I find when there's drama, that's not the case. So Texans, even before all this, they were dismantling.
Yeah,
We thought them a very bad organization, and I think they were correct.
true.
And the defense is awful. So whatever fantasy, good or bad, influence that could have. And just
They
real quick,
did just
folks,
make
we
a
we don't know that Watson's out, but we're just speculating, and it really kind of doesn't matter, like we're saying.
Watson moving forward too is a potential ticking time bomb as far as say the season starts and he's going to be the starter. Okay, that's great. But at what point during the season do they pull the rug out from underneath the Texans and say you're going on
Suspension,
the commissioner's exempt list while we
parse through
investigate
this.
all these
Exactly.
allegations and everything?
Court
I
court
think
case
that I
or
think that
not,
he's
guilty or innocent. Remember, folks,
yeah.
the NFL can do what they
I
want.
think that I personally have this feeling that he's going to start the season on the commissioner's exempt list.
I agree.
I have that weird feeling that this is all the arrows are pointing that way, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll find out here as the offseason rolls along. Let's
Yep.
move on to Aaron Jones here.
Mm-hmm.
He was weirdly he was only ranked to number 51 in PFF's free agent list, and they ranked like 200 players.
Hmm.
And I mean, they ranked every position. They had every position out there, but
Long
he was
snapper.
51. I mean, just I like Aaron Jones a lot better than this. He did get a pretty good contract, 4 years, 48 million. Only 13 guaranteed. Could have been a little bit better, I think, in that respect. But I think maybe he took a little bit less guaranteed money to stay with the Packers instead of going to another team.
Well, I think he also tested the market, and then there wasn't as much out there as he thought.
Yeah, probably. I mean, with the salary cap going down, it was a bad year for Jones here to hit free agency. So it's
And
kind of a
that's
bad year for every running back because I mean, I think Christian McCaffrey's restructured his contract. I think Alvin Kamara did as well,
mhm.
just to give their team more money.
Every
Um,
position across the board,
yeah.
is remember, folks, that not only did the salary cap go down, it went down when they expected it to go up because of the
Hmm.
pandemic. So therefore,
Yep.
it's almost like you compound that on top of it. I expected to have 15 more million in room next year. Now I have 30 less or something like that.
Yeah.
And Aaron Jones is a perfect example of that. Last thing I was going to add was I assume Miami's price tag was a little lower. Although
Yeah.
like you said, he might have taken less to stay, but I still think Miami. I'm firmly believe Miami was in the hunt. I just think it was a little too expensive.
So here's the problem with Aaron Jones. The Packers just lost their center, Corey Linsley, to the Chargers. Good move, the
Mm,
Chargers.
good tidbit.
And Corey Linsley was PFF's number one best center in all of football this past season. And they're potentially losing the Packers, that is, potentially losing their guard. I think he's their right guard. I'm sorry, right tackle,
Oh,
Rick Wagner. He was only ranked the number 23 out of, I think, 50 tackles ranked by. So, I mean, he's middling, but, it's still,
but
you're
good
starting
linemen
to
are hard
lose
to
these
come by.
pieces. And what was it? PFF ranked the Green Bay offensive line like number 2 or 3 for 2020. So you start taking those pieces away, and it's going to be a few less holes and a little less running room for Aaron Jones here this next season, potentially, assuming they don't fix these holes, which
Right.
I think they're probably gonna draft a center. There isn't really much out there for centers. I have no idea why Green Bay gave this money to Aaron Jones instead of Corey Linsley.
Mm, that's a valid argument.
No idea. No
Yeah,
idea.
I
But
think it.
Jamal Williams, I'm sorry, Jamal
You're good.
Williams did leave,
Mm-hmm.
so there's potentially there, but there's not going to be more touches because AJ Dillon's going to slide into that role a little bit more. He's just AJ Dillon's going to get more touches. Aaron Jones is going to stay at the same level, but he's been a top what 12 back the last 2 seasons, and actually, well, in 2019 he was the number 2 running back. I'm sorry, he's been a top 5 running back in the last 2 seasons. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What were you going to say? I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted you there.
I think your take is absolutely valid and it has to be considered because that's been kind of the one knock on Jones is volume. Now I think Packers aren't any different than a lot of teams out there that see their number one running back as a weapon and an asset. However, you need to protect that asset. So there's
Hmm.
more load sharing and running back by committee nowadays. But as you said, Williams left. That opens up some opportunity. Um, I think it's a good thing at the end of all this. I think the fact that he's staying in this offense is helpful. I think that it takes all things, including, as you said, offensive line, running back talent. Defense helps a running back because you get more possession, more chance to run down the clock, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those other factors will outweigh the loss of the offensive line, and yes, the still purveying uh, 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 share crunch, if you will, the touch crunch. I'm going with it. That is
That's
going on. That AJ Dillon will be inserted to. But dynasty manager speaking for AJ Dillon, yeah, I mean you're not happy.
Mm.
I guess if you were a dynasty manager of Aaron Jones, you could have gotten a couple years of maybe more production in a
Um,
situation where he got more opportunity and a big contract. But I think long term, you're happy with this as a dynasty manager because he's in this offense. He's got the security of his, 4-year deal, right?
yeah,
So
it's probably more like a 2,
he
but
was already a really good back. And I think he needs to keep his touches in the same kind of neighborhood. I don't think
yeah,
he's a 80-90% guy.
so I was kind of thinking as I was writing down my notes for today is that, I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, look, he was a number 2 running back in 2019. He was a number 5 running back in 2020. He
Mm.
should be going in the first round. I'm thinking more like mid to end of the second round because until they fix their offensive line, I think that's where he should go.
And we got plenty
Because
of time for. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
don't know if he's gonna be a top 10 back next year if that line isn't there to help him out, you know?
We got plenty of time for ADP and rankings to to
Yep.
adjust accordingly. And we got the big one coming up, the draft, and well, coming up like 4 or 5 weeks away. But Yeah, so we'll see.
Um,
But I'm
yeah, it's
obviously
about 5 weeks away.
your arrow straight or a little down, and I'm arrow up. I think
I'm
is kind
down.
of where we're. Yeah, you're down.
My arrow is definitely pointing down for Aaron Jones. I
It's fun.
don't want him on my team if he's a first round value. That is, let's put it that way.
Gotcha. No, that's a great
Like if
stipulation.
it's going to
That
cost me a
means the
first
world.
rounder, nope.
Well, we're splitting hairs here in the first/second round. Yeah, I think that's an important stance to take. So, what I love about doing these off-season shows is we're going to find ones like these where we differ, and it's interesting to see how they play out.
So here's a guy that we're probably going to differ on a little bit. I'm going to do some game film on this dude. I'm not going to lie. And maybe I'm going to do that next after just a quick little plug. I just did a video on Nick Chubb. Nick
Mm-hmm.
Chubb, aces in my book. I love me some Nick Chubb.
That is not one
So
we differ on.
our next guy is Chris Carson here. He got a 2-year deal to stay in Seattle. It's worth up to I think it's worth more than 14.6 million, but 5.5 of it is guaranteed. That's just kind of the meat of the contract is
Sure.
14.6 there.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one thing that I didn't know about Chris Carson. He finished 12th in 2019 and 20th in 2020, and he finished 20th in 2020 after missing 4 games. So if you take his 14.11 points per game and you plug those into his 4 games that he missed, he would have ended up as RB number 8 on the season had he stayed healthy. Now he hasn't had a
He
full
has not stayed
16.
healthy. That's part of the problem. Yeah,
I mean, he missed 1 game in 2019, and then he missed, I believe it was 3 in 2018, and he missed
that's
4 this
good.
past season.
Yeah,
Or no, I'm sorry, he missed 2 in 2018. So, I mean, it's not.
that's really good for a running back. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if he
I
misses a
almost
couple of
want
games,
my running
cool.
back missing a game or two.
I think at this point, I kind of expect it out of almost every
Oh,
running back
and
nowadays.
17-game season. Is that not
Uh,
a done deal?
I don't know. I don't think
Okay, we'll get to that later. Go ahead.
so. So man, I was starting to look at this and I was like, that makes Chris Carson. So he's going to probably miss a couple of games, maybe 3.
Bake that in. Yeah.
Man, I kind of want to draft him now in like the middle of the second round as my RB2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of on board with Chris Carson, man.
I think my comment about he has been missing time is in direct reference to last year, and
But he hasn't missed a ton of it, though.
that's why
That's the thing.
that's why I want to qualify this is recency bias. Just played itself out right there. I kind of remembered it wrong, and I'm the Carson fan, right? So he has been quite durable. He's a tough dude, but we have this bad taste in our mouths from 2020. Well, I think to your point, I think we could see a pretty good value here. I think the money you're seeing is a commitment to him. Yes, it's at a bargain because we've touched on it 100 times already. Salary cap.
Yeah, we don't need to go over it.
Exactly. So, and he's already been there. He worked his way up from undrafted, I believe, maybe 6th or 7th round. Yeah, 6th or 7th at least. So I've been a fan.
It doesn't really have a lot of competition behind them either. Like no legit competition. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with Rashad Penny.
I think he's done.
He's just ghosted.
I think the Seahawks know that they whiffed on him after they spent a first round pick for some reason on him.
And I think it was a severe injury too, if memory serves.
Yeah,
might have sapped him.
And here's my thing too about Chris Carson is if Seattle actually beefs up their offensive line like Russell Wilson has been complaining about, and that's going to make Chris Carson of just a better. Like he's going to probably put up some better numbers behind a better offensive line. And Seattle's offensive line has not been very good, and he's been putting up some pretty decent numbers, not elite. And I'm not saying Chris Carson
is a hard runner. He's a hard runner,
but he's a hard runner, and he can catch the ball as well.
Sure.
So I kind of like him staying there. And I'm totally doing game film on Chris Carson now. I
think we could see great value here.
My next one is going to be Robert Woods. So after Woods, probably Chris Carson.
Nice.
What else you got to say on Chris Carson?
I think that's it. Yep, I think we touched
on
it.
The next running back here will be Kenyon Drake.
Oh boy.
I don't understand this. I really don't. He got a 2-year, $11 million deal, all guaranteed from the Raiders.
That feels right. I saw a few contracts that were like, the overall number is low, but it was like it's all guaranteed. Like they're just like, here you go.
I don't know what the Raiders are doing this offseason.
Insurance?
The Raiders,
I
the
guess I don't
Raiders
know.
are like a bat without its radar. Like
Hmm.
it
They need a
does, like
receiver for God's
they
sakes.
have no direction. I do not understand what this team is doing. Like they could have completely dismantled their offensive line, which some people said was a really stout one. PFF had them ranked at like 17th or something, like below average. So I get maybe why they did that, but they also dismantled some of their defensive pieces too. I don't know what this team is doing. They let Nelson Aguilar go, even though he was like their best receiver last year. They let
Hmm.
Tyrell Williams go. He was hurt all year, so I get that. But man, I Kenyon Drake, like he's like a poor man's Josh Jacobs, and you already have Josh Jacobs. So why I don't get it, man. I really don't.
I don't know. Maybe somewhere in the coaches or personnel's mind, they're like, we want somebody that's almost just like our number one guy, and we'll pay anything to get that. I don't know. You're right.
Yeah, but
Um,
normally you I don't know.
this, yeah, there's no doubt this hurts. Dynasty owners of Jacobs redraft.
I
His
don't know if it really
he'll
hurts
drop.
Jacobs though. That's the thing. It just
I gotta
I
follow the
think Kenyon
money
Drake is there to just I think Kenyon Drake is there just to spell Jacobs. I
to be
think
a
that's all
backup.
it is. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think he's
I
there to
can't help but
really.
look at that number. It's not the biggest number for a running back, and it's 11 million over
Also
two
not
years.
small either. Five and a
Yeah,
half
but
million per.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're talking about who was it that had a similar number? Who is Carson? Yeah, it's a little more, but he's obviously going to be the starter. It's starting at NFL running back money because that value is
I
suppressed.
suppose.
That's what I
I
don't
don't know,
get.
man.
Why let him go somewhere else and bring in somebody cheaper and or a draft pick cheaper.
Yeah, I get like sign Duke Johnson and he could have been their
Well, and the
third down
fantasy
back.
community was
You
just
know, like
falling in love with Jacobs.
I don't.
Going back to last,
I'm still not sure why, but well, we'll see.
some decent numbers.
He's on my growing list of guys to do game film on. So,
Ooh, I might want
but
to do that one. I
okay,
like I like running backs. Anyway, I think we've
let's
said what we need to say. Yeah, about Drake. Not good for
let,
fantasy.
let, let's move on to Jamal Williams here. We kind of briefly touched on him leaving Green
Oh,
Bay.
right. Hmm.
Um, he's our second last running back I really have anything to say about. It's an interesting signing by Detroit. I was just like, why would you do that? He's like, DeAndre Swift light, and then I was like, and then I saw that PFF had him ranked as their 17th best running back in 2019 and their 19th best in 2020, which
Efficient.
was actually better than Aaron Jones in
Yep.
2019. And I was like, huh. I
He's a
mean
good
they're
player.
grading they're grading every single aspect of
Blocking,
his game.
catching. Yep.
Blocking, catching, vision, like stuff like that,
Hmm.
power,
Hmm.
everything. They're not just going by stats, but I think he's just more of a handcuff to DeAndre Swift. Yeah, Adrian Peterson's out of Detroit at the moment, but
Okay. Good.
it just seems like there's three guys that are kind of all the same, but just on slightly different levels of skill. Like DeAndre Swift, good. On Johnson, not quite as good. And then Jamal Williams is right there with on. I'm like, I don't get it.
I think number one, Jamal Williams
I
is
want to know,
talented.
Chris. I want to know.
Right. Number one, Jamal Williams is talented. Let's not forget that. No, he's not as talented as Aaron Jones, but he's a good back. He can do it all.
Yeah, you can.
Number two, he's a pretty good guy. Like I think he's the type of player. I know it's cliche or hyperbolic, but they want him in the locker room. Now, how much is he, if any, if is he taking away from Swift? Well, I think Swift's the guy. I'm gonna get that out of the way. Um,
I think so too.
I think Carry
I
On's
and
maybe
I,
the
and I was
occasional
kind of
goal line
and I was kind of
guy.
speculating in my brain that maybe they get rid of on Johnson
That could happen still. But even
and
if they don't, he's just your third guy. He's a kind of a bigger body. He's a goal line role player.
yeah, I guess
I mean, maybe.
on Johnson is a pretty big back, isn't he? He's like
Hmm.
6 foot.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay.
And over
Okay,
200.
that makes sense.
But with these two, Williams and Swift, I don't know, man. I don't. I want to say I'm still fine with Swift, because talent and opportunity.
I think this is in my mind is dragging Swift down a little bit.
Okay.
It's just I don't know. We don't have to say much about Jamal Williams. I just wanted to just mention that he went to
It's a
Detroit.
good signing for real football. Maybe you're
Real
right. Maybe not,
football,
maybe not
fantasy,
so much for fantasy, but I'm holding
and
out
then
hope that it's still fine.
now okay, I'm gonna try and contain myself here. I'm gonna try and contain myself. You might have to like mute me here for a second or whatever, because we're gonna talk about Marlon Mack and his 1 year, $2 million fully guaranteed deal to go back to the Colts and destroy Jonathan Taylor's fantasy value. I do not understand this. I have so many expletives written down on my notebook and were said while I was at work when I found this out the other day. I was just irate. I'm like, why would you do this? I know it's only $2 million. I know, but you have a better back in Jonathan
2.5.
Taylor and Naeem Hunt. What?
2.5, I believe it's what I've got down. Either way, it's insignificant. Doesn't matter. $500,000 is insignificant, Josh. You know what I mean? It doesn't
I'm
matter.
glad you interrupted me because I was starting to boil and yeah, okay. I'm better. I just don't understand why Marlon Mack is there. It was being brought back. A guy coming off an Achilles injury too. Uh
I think it's
I could
comfort on both
I
sides.
guess.
In
And
a
I mean, like,
market
if
where
Jonathan Taylor and if Jonathan Taylor were to go to get injured, hopefully he doesn't, but if he suffers a significant injury and has to miss significant time, say after like week 5 or 6 when Marlon Mack is maybe even healthier than he
Mhm,
is at the moment,
mhm.
he's gonna be a good plug-in and,
Oh, for
whatever.
sure. I think that's the
I
way to
do
look at
not
it.
like this whatsoever. I think this significantly anchors Jonathan Taylor's value because I can see the Colts just all of a sudden, for whatever reason, here comes Marlon Mack onto the field. Jonathan Taylor is like sitting on the sidelines going, what? Why am I out of the game? I have over 100 yards rushing already. And they're like, yep, good job, kid. It's Mack's turn.
I
Throwing
don't
the
know.
Mack truck out there. I just, I don't
I
know.
disagree.
That's that's
I
running
think
back
this
over.
is comfort and depth, honestly. I think both Marlon Mack is comfort with Colts and Colts are comfort with Mack and their number 2 uh, or 3 role, however you want to put it, because Hines is there. I think the Colts showed a commitment to Taylor and Hines last year that they want them to be the
I
guy,
know, and I loved it.
and
I was fine with it.
Matt couldn't find a job, so to speak. He probably could have taken less and maybe got somewhere. I think the important number to look at there is a 1 year.
Yeah, I know. I know.
He gets another year
Anyways,
to play and get paid, but doesn't have to move his kids, pandemic, salary cap, the whole thing. But and I just think Taylor showed us enough at the end of last year. And the Colts showed us enough in terms of committing with carries and still working in Hines. I think we'll be all right. I think they found what they wanted in those 2 players, and this is a depth signing.
I hope so.
I hope so
All
too.
right, so here's some running backs that are still available as of
Oh,
Sunday,
quick
the
honorable
21st.
mention. Carlos Hyde went to the Jags. So
You
it's
know,
2
I kind of like
years,
this.
4.5. That's not
I
insignificant.
kind of like this signing in the sense that it'll take a little work off of James Robinson
Mm-hmm.
because James Robinson got it seemed to get a little dinged up towards the end of last year. Like we said in previous episodes, maybe it was just him hitting the rookie wall, but I kind of like this. Carlos Hyde isn't gonna. I don't think he's gonna take significant touches away from James Robinson. I think James Robinson is definitely more talented
Oh yeah.
than Carlos Hyde because
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Hyde is he's just a bowling ball at this point,
But
and not a very good
he
one at
keeps
that.
getting a job for a reason. I think that's important, man.
I know.
And the 2 years, 4.5 mil. There's nothing to sneeze
Yeah.
at. I think he's a
Eh,
role player. I think you got to remember there's a new coaching staff. So I do agree in that I don't think Hyde takes this job.
no.
Um, but I also don't think the new staff is in love with James Robinson. But he's not going anywhere yet. I'm staying with the status quo. He is
We'll
the
see.
guy. It's just this gives me a little bit of a flag. And you've seen 3 or 4 situations we've been through in
And
the last 10 minutes. We've been like, you go this way, I
but
go this way on the guy that was brought in. And if it hurts
right.
the
The one
incumbent.
thing that I really like about James
So,
Robinson is Urban Meyer and the fact that Urban Meyer has really been kind of a more of a workhorse back
okay.
coach. I
Okay.
mean, granted, that's in
Like a
college, and
lunch pail kind of guy.
he kind of just gets to pick
Oh, I
whatever.
see what you mean. Like one guy. He picks a feature back.
I'm sorry, what?
You're saying he picks a feature back. He picks one guy and
Yeah.
sticks with him. Okay. I agree.
Hmm.
That is
Yeah, he doesn't
a
like to rotate.
bonus in the column
Anyways,
for James Robinson, and the fact of what he did last year. I think he's earned
yep.
a chance. But This is on my radar. I'm a little concerned, and I know I'm the one who predict. I didn't predict it. I said he could be gone, and you're like, never. So we'll
I don't
see.
think so.
But I think that's all I had on
Uh,
honorable mentions.
yeah, still some guys that are left to not be to.
Still
Still some
available.
guys that have not been signed. James Conner is still sitting out there. Mike
Yes.
Davis, Duke Johnson, James White, Lev Bell, whatever. Rex Burkhead, whatevs. Tevin Coleman, okay. Mainly those first four: James Conner, Mike Davis, Duke Johnson, James White. These are all probably going to be just role player backs at this point.
Well,
Especially
rewind a little
James
bit real
White.
quick.
And
James Conner? Is that where you're with at James Conner? You don't think he? What if he goes back to Pittsburgh? You don't think he's the guy?
I don't think he's going back to Pittsburgh. I think they're done with him.
So if he goes elsewhere, you don't think he's a starter?
Maybe, but he's not. He's going to be more a first, second down than a 3 down back. So
Um,
a guy with a role.
yeah. Well, I mean, because of health mainly is what you're thinking, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So if it
And
weren't for
Mike
health, you
Davis is Mike Davis more of a change of pace back. Duke Johnson,
for sure
James White, they're really more of a third
the
down
receiving
style
back.
back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I just and I mean, like, I like Mike Davis and what he more or less did all of last
But we know
year.
what Mike
And
Davis is. Yeah, we know what he
yeah,
is.
we saw what Mike Davis's peak
Precisely.
is.
Hmm. I think
James
with
White,
Connor, real quick. So go ahead with White.
no, I'm good.
Just last thing on Connor is there's been a lot of Miami talk, just like there was Miami talk with Aaron Jones. So I think
I don't want Connor to go to Miami.
I don't necessarily either, but I think it's important to mention that they're in. I think the rumors clearly show they're in the market for a running back, and what that says about Gaskin, because we did a little bit of that off air before we started.
Yeah,
I'm a
I don't know.
Gaskin
I mean,
guy. He's resisted the slings and arrows up to this point. He's still quote the man. So we'll proceed until something changes.
yeah,
But there has been Connor whispers in Miami, and from a football perspective for Miami, I think it makes sense. Like you said, Connor
it
is
does.
probably a 50-60% guy, not a 70-80.
I don't,
So
but I see like Miami. I think that
mm,
like kind of what they did all of last year is they weren't really rotating a lot of backs. They were like primarily one dude,
that's fair.
and that happened to be Miles
Once they
Gaskin.
found Gaskin, yeah, that's true
Well,
too.
and then when Gaskin got hurt, it was primarily like Salvin
Ahmed,
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 and there was another guy that they primarily ran when Ahmed got hurt too, and I can't remember who it is off the top of my head.
me either.
But
But they had a lot of injuries there.
I don't think they want to rotate guys in and out if they don't have to.
It's a very solid point. I guess I
So
kind of didn't look at it that
and
way.
James Conner, I mean, I guess if they're looking short term and they just want to like squeak out some wins and just want to run him into the ground, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think Connor's more.
I think they're going to draft. I think they're drafting a running back though, man.
I think Connor's probably is more talented than Gaskin. I think I'm there. I think I'm okay with that. But I think it's kind of
I
close.
feel like they're maybe on the same level.
Okay,
Anyways,
that's all I got on him.
you got anyone? You got anyone else you want to talk about? Anyone? Anyone?
No more
Anyone?
backs. I go down my list. I think we touched on my Malcolm Brown
Okay.
Dolphins since we just mentioned Dolphins. That's it.
Oh, right. Yep. I actually that's a good one.
Oh,
Michael.
and we didn't do Lindsay, did we?
Yeah, we did at the very beginning.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot. That's right. That's right. Our
Um,
transition.
but Malcolm Brown going to the Dolphins, don't really care about that all that much. What I do care about is his absence in Los Angeles, and that makes me love Cam Akers and to a lesser extent Daryl Henderson even more.
More of a
I like that he's gone,
yeah.
and that kind of
You know what
clears
to
up the
expect.
waters there a
You know what
little
to
bit.
expect. Yeah.
I'm sure they're going to draft like spend a late round pick on a running back that has some upside and he'll get some work and I'll bang my head against the wall. But until then, as of right now, love Cam Akers and
Amen.
And as a real late round speculative draft pick, Daryl Henderson too. I think Cam Akers, as with the current situation as it is right now, I think Cam Akers draft stock is going to be way too high for me
Oh
personally.
yeah, could not beat
But
value. Yeah.
we'll see where he ends up by next season. You got anything else, man?
I think that's it.
Cool. Until next time, which next week we will be covering the meat of the episode will be wide receivers because there's a lot of them. But also tight ends. Maybe I'll talk about a kicker or two as well, even though most people nowadays don't like to talk about kickers.
Mm.
It's kind of a faux pas, but whatevs. And until then, I want everyone to stay safe and wear a mask. Check us. You can email us at amazingffb@gmail.com. We also have a Twitch channel, which we will be streaming at least the first round of the draft
Mhm.
live. And we will be in the basement studio there at Chris's house together.
Yeah.
Unless something awful happens,
Right.
like
Yeah.
you have some sort of weird spike in the pandemic or something
And hopefully I should
over
be
there. I'm
vaccinated by
vaccinated, but
then.
not you guys.
Yeah.
Um,
We're working on it.
speaking of which, if you have a chance to get a vaccination, do not be picky. Get whatever vaccination you can get.
Yes.
Don't
They
go for
work.
the name brand.
Yes.
They
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 work.
all are have proven to be very effective.
Yeah.
So
Don't be dumb.
do that and check us if you are listening to us in podcast format. You can check us out on YouTube, where I have done some videos on Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb. Swear I'm not a Browns fan, and
Coincidence, pure coincidence.
I am now working on Robert Woods, which I hope to get up by this coming Wednesday evening.
You might see Gaskin
Um,
and is Fuller still looking for a job? No, he went to Miami, right?
he went
Yeah.
to Miami.
You might see Fuller and Gaskin for me, although I'm not a Miami fan.
Yes, he is. And until next week, everyone, stay safe. Keep wearing those masks. We're almost there, folks. Until then, check you later.
Like, share, and subscribe.